Welcome, critters. I'm Claire Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plot lines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. This particular episode is about Campaign 1, episode 31, part 2, I think. Am I right?
I think so. Let me check what my notes say. Yeah, 31.
It's been a week. And joining me today is Petall. Yay!
Hello.
So the icebreaker for today is, what is your favorite form of potatoes?
Mashed potatoes. I
That
don't
was
even need to think
quick.
about it.
What about mashed
Mashed
potatoes?
potatoes. I just love them so much. I've always loved them so much ever since I was a kid. They're just so good, and I could eat them forever.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on mashed potatoes. I'm a mashed potatoes girly. Like, when I don't have an appetite, I can always eat mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
It is like that go-to comfort food that I can always
Hmm.
eat it, even if I'm feeling sick, even if I'm feeling like depressed, even if I have no appetite. Mashed potatoes is where it's at. You can't beat the combo of potatoes, butter, and salt.
So good. So good. I think that's the fastest I've ever had an answer. Normally I have
Yeah,
to stop and think about it.
yeah. Yeah, the question that I saw was, if you could be a form of potatoes, what form would you be? And I was like, nah, we're just going to talk about our favorite form. So please join us as we embark on this exciting adventure and story analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well. So please comment, like, subscribe, and ready? All right, let's dive on in. So as we open this second half of the episode, take it away.
All right. So the group stealths through the city, hearing the sounds of rebellion around them. Grog uses the dust of tracelessness to help cover their tracks. The party arrives at the alcove and finds the doors are closed and locked. Vax checks the door, finds a fairly simple lock. The group looks around for signs of ambush in case this is some sort of a trap, but don't see signs of anyone outside, though the group do hear footsteps within. Keyleth knocks on the door and tells them that says that allies have arrived. The party uses the phrase "crazy grandma" to gain trust and get in. Jordana lets them in and ushers them inside. Vex tells her that it has started. Uh, Jordana says that it's not safe to be here right now and asks if anybody saw them come in. The party says no. At this point, Scanlan also arrives and joins up with everybody else, and Keyleth tells him that he did a good job and that she saw the fire that he started. Scanlan then gives a sort of rundown of his mission, everything that he did on his side of things. Jordana then asks what's going on. Percy replies that they may have just started a revolution. The party explains to Jordana who they are and that they were hiding their identities before. They ask if they can stay overnight to rest. Jordana agrees. The party then discusses if resting is a good idea or if they should carry the momentum of the revolution while they still have it. Keyleth is nervous about losing the support that they have if they wait, and the party discusses telling the rebellion to hold off until morning. Vex asks if Jordana can get the word out to people. Jordana says she can to a few, but she doesn't really want to go outside right now. Percy suggests resting for the afternoon and then attacking tonight. Vex suggests going out and fighting the zombie giants now and then telling the rebellion to wait while they rest for the night. Keyleth suggests taking a short rest first before going out to fight. Percy suggests doing a round of the front courtyard to see what's going on. Keyleth begins to worry about the number of people who are dying for the rebellion if they wait longer than a short rest to join the fight, saying that they lit the fire and can't stop now. Percy reminds the party that someone isn't forming on them to the enemy. Keyleth asks if Jordana has a book on zombie giants. Jordana says necromancy is not a common topic of books in Whitestone. The party settles on the plan to take a short rest and then take out the giants. Percy says he's going to wear the hat of disguise and offers his headband of initiative as he can't wear more than one thing on his head. Vex takes it. Scanlan sings a song of rest to give everybody some extra hit points while they rest up. During the short rest, they occasionally hear voices run by, and by the end, hear a giant fall nearby, having been taken down by the rebellion. This brings the number of zombie giants from 6 to 4. Vex asks before they head out, asks Jordana if she has any extra supplies or magic items. She tells them that she has already given the party everything that she has to offer. The party heads out, and Jordana locks the door behind them. As they are going, Scanlan brings up the fact that Tyleri was a vampire, and makes the connection that Desmond, when he was filling the party in on everything, had said that Tyleri was his master, and then Silas Briarwood killed him and hung him from the sun tree. Vex suggests that Silas may have turned him before hanging him, and Keyleth reminded the party that the man at the bar said that when people die, they come back, and that she thinks the whole land is cursed. Percy then suggests going to the sun tree. As they walk around, they find another dead giant with the bodies of 8 civilians around it, bringing the number of giants they have left to kill off down to 3. Then the party arrives at the sun tree. There is a zombie close to the sun tree in combat with the rebels. Keyleth then notices 8 ropes dangling free from the sun trees and notes that the bodies have been cut down. They also notice a bunch of other ropes of various ages hanging from the tree. The party speculates, trying to figure out if the body were cut down by civilians or if hanging from the sun tree is a step in preparing the bodies for becoming undead. The party then notices an undead skeletal army coming in their direction. Keyleth climbs the sun tree. Scanlan blows a horn of fog to create a smoke screen. At this point, the zombie giant kills off the last of the group that was attacking it. The party debates if they should fight now or rest up to fight tomorrow. Keyleth offers to make an ice storm to try to take the army out. The party decides to hit them and run away. Keyleth climbs the top of the tree to get a view above the smoke screen. Vex follows. Keyleth sees that there are far more undead people than she had previously noted, closer to 100 rather than 30, and Keyleth begins to make her ice storm. Vax places himself beneath Keyleth to catch her if needed. Vex makes a comment about not looking up Keyleth's skirt. The ice storm forms and begins to hit the army. About 20 to 30% of the army are immediately torn apart and taken out. Vex grabs Keyleth and the party begins to make a run for it. The giant pursues after them, having noticed the storm. The party decides to head in the direction of the tree line to the rest of town, to the west of town. Trinket grabs Vex and puts her on his back. Keyleth casts Call Lightning on the giant. Vex shoots it with an arrow, it splits into 3. The giant is damaged, but is still moving forward and takes a swipe at the party, hitting Percy. Percy shoots the giant with bad news. Vax attacks as well with his daggers, hitting each eye. After all these attacks, the torso tumbles off the giant. Then the legs step forward a few steps before falling over as well, and the giant is defeated. The party then takes off running, and notices that the skeletal army is filling the streets. The Briarwoods have prepared their own anti-rebellion measures. And that's the end of the episode.
So the first question I have about the second half is, what do you do when you start a revolution that you're not prepared for?
Yeah, that is a really good question. That really does seem to be where they are. Like, they've made all these plans to start the revolution, but then were so drained by the actions they took to start them that they weren't prepared to help carry on that momentum.
I mean, I feel like we're talking about two things right now. It's like, one, in game, we're talking about action economy, right? With D&D in the world of playing D&D. But then we're also talking about this much bigger topic of revolution.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're prepared for either.
No. Well, a lot of them are out of spells and things, so that was the main reason why they were debating how much to rest up, whether to just take the short rest and regain some hit points, like, and then go out and go, or whether to take the long rest and recover all their resources. And
Yeah.
And then there's also the timing element of things, and Keyleth brings up a very good point about how there are people kind of like dying in their names at the moment,
Yeah.
and yeah,
I don't know if they were really expecting the townspeople to start the revolution as the noble houses fell. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They didn't really figure that out ahead of time when they were talking to, is it Keeper Yenin that was running the like civilian side of things?
I believe so.
Like there was a whole like we'll wait for your signal kind of conversation, right? But
Hmm.
it wasn't like what signal and what will happen when that signal happens, right?
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show how in general it's really hard to control a big group of people. Like, it's unpredictable, especially once kind of like mob mentality kicks in,
Yeah,
which it is. Mob mentality is often depicted as something bad, but it also
absolutely.
is like can come into play here when all of a sudden like the energy is rising, morale is rising, and the people finally feel like they can stand up to the oppressors, and
Mm-hmm.
then like they kind of get caught up in it, and it just kind of becomes actions are rolling, there's no time to think, it's just
Yeah,
like the time is now. And
yeah,
in general I would say that the pieces that they had went pretty well. Like they took out like at least half the giants. I mean, there's two giants still unaccounted for, maybe they're dead, maybe they're still around, but they're like they did a pretty good job, all things considered.
yeah. And is this the first time in the campaign where they've really been confronted with the issue of action economy?
I think so. I don't entirely remember, but I think so.
I mean, they had a bit of a slog when it came to the Slayer's Take adventures, like the
Hmm.
Dragon and the Rakshasa. But I don't know if they've had like a slog following a slog
Hmm.
yet. And so I think this is also very clever of Matt to, take the small campfire that they created with the two houses burning and turn it into
Hmm.
like a forest fire.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you
Yeah.
do when we turn it up to an 11?
Exactly. It's really interesting what's going on here. And I really think like there's no way that they could have like carried on the rebellion fully from where they are. I think they really settled on the best thing of like taking a short rest to regain some resources, going out and doing what they can, and then coming back to rest. Because
Yeah,
like the truth of the matter is that like I mean sometimes I think there's like the people who are running rebellions are still people, and they get tired and have limits of their resources and things like that. It's just it's a reality of
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
if we want to switch to the personal experiences or I guess real world experiences question is like, I just can't help but think about how easy people think rebellions are. In
Hmm.
theory, people are like, yes, let's like, especially the whole like eat the rich down with capitalism.
Hmm.
That's what my mind goes to immediately is like people are like, we just need to destroy the system, rebellion, rah. And I'm like, do you think it's honestly that easy to like destroy
Yeah.
a system that's been around for centuries at this point? Like our entire society is dependent on this system. And
Hmm.
as much as people like the idea of anarchy in theory,
Well, the truth of the matter is that like there's a lot of people who for various reasons like their lives depend on the system, and not just in like a greedy capitalist way, but I'm talking about in like disabled people who need certain like medication or certain things in place. Like I'm all for like overturning capitalism and all these things,
absolutely.
but
Let me put that
it's
out there. I am anti-capitalist. But that's exactly what I was
I
gonna.
think it's more of like a changing the system, and because otherwise if you don't, like, it's kind of like the point that Keyleth was bringing up, like people are going to die.
Yeah,
And
vulnerable
how
people.
much, like, it's one thing to choose to put your own life on the line, but it's not really a good or moral position to be in to decide who else gets to die and who else gets to be sacrificed
Yeah. I
for
mean,
your glorious new future.
children, you said vulnerable people, the elderly, the disabled, like all of these more vulnerable, I'm just going to stick with that word for now, people depend on a certain continuation of the system, right?
Yeah, and it's not to say that like everything has to be like slow policy changes or things like that. I think that's a tool that like there is a time and a place for like of course like protests are a big type of things and there are times when it makes sense for things to get a little more like intense and violent and stuff like that. There are times and places, but I think just in like the overall thing, like we need to be aware of like who we're fighting for and make sure nobody gets caught between the cracks.
I mean, I immediately think of the French protests that have happened in the last couple of years, like especially the ones that went on for a long time when they were considering raising the retirement age. I
Hmm.
don't know if you followed that at all, but
No, I
um,
wasn't aware of this.
yeah, the French government, I think like the president in particular, wanted to raise the retirement age by like 2 years or something like that. And the French people were like, fuck no. And so they protested, I think, for like 60 days, something like that. It went on for a while. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but the reason why they were able to like be so successful in their protesting and stay so long in their protesting is because they had community support structures to support
Hmm.
the protesters, but also not only support the protesters, but support the businesses that had relied on this systemic money prior to the protests.
Yeah.
And so, like, there were business owners out there who were like giving food away for free to the protesters so that the protesters could continue to be fed without going to work and being paid to, you know, do their regular everyday job. And so
Yeah.
the French, I think, are one of the most experienced countries at protesting. And so they have that knowledge of there needs to be some sort of community support system in place in order for protests and revolutions to have any chance of success.
Exactly. Because again, there's that, like, it goes back to with the party, there's the burnout too. Like, people who are doing, like, the more radical actions for change, like, it's not sustainable to just run on that. There needs to be support
Yeah.
behind them. And, like, people burn out and people have needs and all of that. And in order to sustain any sort of movement that's going to be going on for, like, any long periods of times. They kind of like need that support, and it can't
Mhm.
just be them leading everything, and they need to be able to like take time and rest or like get fed and just like all these things.
Yeah. And I don't think Whitestone has those supports in place.
No, well, I mean, people can barely feed themselves. They
Yeah.
can barely find safe places to rest. Like this is a kind of like extreme option.
Yeah. And so like I understand where Keyleth is coming from a lot of the second half, but at the same time it's almost kind of like, well, what did you expect at the same time? Is like you didn't necessarily think about that beforehand. You're just now thinking about the
Hmm.
consequences of your actions. We have to like, pre-consequence sometimes. Not just
But I think also
post-consequence.
like Whitestone is like everything's happening now. Like there's a very big difference like in real life between like trying to move for change for something that is more like slow and systemic and not quite such of a like pressing immediate matter. And then
Mhm.
there's like other situations such as like Palestine where everybody's actively being bombed and killed and all of that, like
Mhm.
where you do need that like immediate pressure and
Mhm.
immediate action because there's no time to like organize something super detailed and planned. I think it really depends on what what it is and what the issue is and how urgent the needs are.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, revolution.
Oh, revolution.
Well, are there personal experiences that come to mind, or is it just like global?
I can really mostly only think of global thing. I mean, it's hard to get personal
Yeah.
in this. Like I do what I can for all of these issues that I care about, but I'm not really much on the front lines for a lot of
Mhm.
these things. So I don't have a
Yeah.
lot of personal experience in spearheading a rebellion or stuff like that. I,
Yeah.
of course, as I said, do what I can, but I don't have the same capacity that others do to like go out and be on the front lines and spearheading change.
Yeah. I mean, the closest thing that I can think of is actually I'm in a union for the first time in my life at the moment.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's very interesting to see how systemically supportive a union is. Like, I've always been, in theory, pro-union. Like, I love unions,
Mm-hmm.
I love the whole concept of unions. But now that I'm in one, I'm just like, yeah, I was right.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the kind of community support structure that you would need within a rebellion or within a revolution, because
Yeah.
you can see that happen all the time in business structures and corporate structures, is like the exploitation that I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of rebellions and revolutions are trying to fix, even if it's governmental versus, you know, business wise on a much smaller scale, or at least less violent scale.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's the closest experience that I can think of, in terms of real life, is like you do have to have someone on the inside who's advocating in community supportive ways to
Yeah.
make sure that there's that baseline level of support. So it's just not like one person who's trying to advocate, it's a group of people who
Exactly.
are trying to advocate.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. I'm like, hey, unions work. What a concept.
Yeah.
Well, what actions are we being called to take?
I think what I'm just thinking of is trying to think as I mean it's not anything new, but as I always do, trying to look at what I can do to contribute to the causes that I care about.
Hmm.
And I mean, as I said, that's a question that I'm always asking myself and always trying to figure out. Like, again, I don't have like the time or resources to throw my whole entire self or
Yeah.
being into a cause, but there are still ways that I can help, like participating in boycotts
Hmm.
and donating to causes and things like that. And I think just, I don't know, continuing to assess what I can
Hmm.
do, signing petitions.
Hmm. I'm honestly really hopeful about the rise of crowdfunding platform
Mm-hmm.
in the last 10 plus years. Is like, I've been especially thinking about TikTok as a community crowdfunding platform. Like, I don't think a lot of people think of it as such, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen the like let's pay off each other's debt trend that's been happening lately on TikTok.
No, I don't go on TikTok super often.
Yeah, so through the creator fund on TikTok, you can get paid a fair amount of money through your videos. And so people have figured out, they've done the math to see like how many views they need to pay off their debt. So
Interesting.
they'll make a video and be like, hey, if this video gets 2 million views, I'll be able to pay off my debt. So would you be willing to share this video so that like we can collectively make that happen? And it's been happening. Like, these
That's really
videos
cool.
have been reaching their marks and like, or at least getting close to, or like some portion of the goal mark that they're asking for. Because I mean, I was honestly seeing that happen. What was it, a year ago, when all of those like TikTok live creators started being like, there was this trend of people just wanting to support regular average people on TikTok and helping them, like the whole AI generated live TikTok persona thing that was for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think it was just an effort to support each other.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really cost us much to send them a star or whatever the reward is during a live, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you get enough, there's some people that are making 10 grand a month off of their lives alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because people want to support that person. And I think that platform in particular is just making it transparent how easily support can accumulate when we collectively work together.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
crowdfunding platforms also convey that. It's just there's more of a middleman when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
crowdfunding platforms than TikTok. But the future of TikTok is currently uncertain, so we will see how that goes. But
Yeah.
I am hopeful. I am gladdened. I am optimistic about these trends that I'm seeing out there of
Mm-hmm.
collective crowd support awareness, I think is how I
Yeah.
would say it.
Yeah. It really does add some like extra tools that haven't always been around.
Can you imagine if the Whitestonians had TikTok?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could just be in their houses being like, what are we gonna do about them
Well, I mean, I
crowds?
think Whitestone would have gotten help a lot faster because part of the reason why it got to the level it did is because the Briarwoods were so easily able to isolate everybody and project this image that everything is great in Whitestone to
Yeah,
all of Whitestone's allies and everybody outside of Whitestone.
yeah.
And so like I think that's a big one, which then of course goes into like real life and how much like controlling information and censorship is really such a like a big tool for oppressive forces and how it's important to like spread awareness for things. It all comes together.
Ding, 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 ding. I think we hit on something.
Uh-huh.
Well, anything you'll want to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean this is a short episode, but also we had a very it was only like 45 minutes that last the
Yeah,
last
and yet we're
chunk.
talking about revolution and solving global
To be fair,
issues.
that was basically what most of that the post break section was on was
Yeah,
on talking about revolution and the best ways to proceed and leading one and
yeah,
just on a much smaller scale.
yeah. Fascinating. We love you, Critical Role.
Hmm.
This is powerful stuff that we're talking about. And audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and opinions with us as well. We'd love to know how episodes like these have impacted you in your own lives. Special thanks to Petall for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And next time, I'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 32, Part 1 with Atlas, and I'm excited for that. I'm always looking for more co-hosts and guests, so if you're interested, hit me up. I'll send you the link. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe below, follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR. And until next time, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be free, and be the chaotic good you wish to see in the world. Take care, guys.